right.
Atheist Nomads episode 345, live for patrons and not for everybody else. Jinja, Honcho, and other stuff.
The podcast you're about to listen to includes cursing and talking about hoo-haws. Please be advised.
Welcome to another episode of Atheist Nomads. I am Dustin, and joining me is Lauren.
I'm the hoo-ha.
If you've only been listening a couple weeks, we used to do a lot of news and stopped doing that after episode 141, except for we're going to continue to do it every so often, like roughly every 5 episodes. We're trying out live, and in this case, we're just doing live with patrons because we love them the most, and they like us enough to give us money.
We love all of our listeners, but the ones that give us money, come on, admit it. That's a special place.
But they're also the ones that are most likely to be more forgiving of horrible mess-ups.
This is true.
So you pay good money, you get to be the guinea pigs. That's how that works.
That sounds like that should be the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
But that works.
Well, one of the most popular patron perks is getting the uncut audio.
Ah.
Why do you pay? Who in their right mind would pay money to get the garbage?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Folky asked a question. I don't know. I'm addicted to those. Oh my gosh. It's the only reason to have Disney Plus. Is to watch Forky shorts.
Yeah.
Forky is my spirit animal.
Oh, and also all of the movies and the Tinkerbells, except for the ones that they don't have because of contracts.
No. There's only one reason to have Disney Plus, and that is Forky shorts.
Mandalorian.
2. Baby Yoda and Forky shorts.
And if you have a 2-year-old and can't think of anything else, you can always find something there.
This is true with Netflix as well.
True.
And we haven't even delved into the grimy abyss of toddler YouTube.
I am kind of afraid of that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Are you afraid that our child will grow up talking like Peppa Pig?
I'm more afraid that their controls on identifying which videos are intended for children and which ones aren't, and trying to make sure that they aren't gathering data on people they aren't legally allowed to gather data on, and also just the amount of religious bullshit in children's YouTube.
Oh, I never thought about that.
Yeah, if you try to do a children's atheist video, they're not likely to accept that. If you try to do a Jesus video, yep.
Oh,
yeah.
I did not know that.
We covered that a while ago.
I was going to say Netflix has VeggieTales now, which, God, I hated God, that was the bane of my middle school years.
Well, you weren't religious, so you didn't, I hope you didn't watch it more than me.
All my friends were really into it.
Oh.
It was like super safe stuff to watch when at sleepovers or on road trips or anything like that. It was VeggieTales. That time that I got stuck at that youth group in ski trip, a lot of VeggieTales. Which is sick because that's geared. I mean, that group was for middle schoolers. VeggieTales, I mean, come on. It loses its appeal after about, 5th grade? Yeah.
I don't think I got to watch it until...
These poor sheltered children.
I didn't get to watch it until late middle school, early high school. Actually, I don't know if it was even really a thing much before that. But I was on the Recollections podcast, season 1, episode 6. It is the most current one on that podcast. And we talked about my growing up and starting down the path towards ministry and then leaving that.
U-turn.
Yeah, it was... he asked a lot of good questions and then edited himself out of all of it. And there's sound backing, and it's pretty nice. I suggest checking it out.
Yeah, it will inspire you to build sandboxes.
Yeah. Lauren listened in on my side of it and now wants to...
Just the one side.
Now wants to set up a sandbox for Kylie.
Yeah, and seeing her play with the one at the Gem and Mineral show was like, oh yeah, we need to get a sandbox. With a lid. Freaking cats.
And, okay, so let's go ahead and jump into dusting off the degree.
You need a dusty sound. dusting off the degree.
And this is something I will continue to do, most likely on the every 5th episode or so, which actually makes it so it's something that I can schedule as opposed to what was happening where I was not having the time and putting it off and then not doing it. So this will force me to...
Which is funny because this is the part that you tend to enjoy the most.
Yeah. It takes the most work. It's more work than news headlines or scheduling people.
True. Which you also hate.
So we are continuing to work through the list of the largest religious bodies in the world. Coming in at number 4 on the adherence.com list is Jinja Hancho, which translates into English as the Association of Shinto Shrines.
That. Okay. So not Shintoism, but this particular association.
Yes. So, Jinja Hancho is the largest organization within the Shinto religion, with 83 million people being counted as members. That's despite the fact that there are over 100 million people who are counted as Shinto. Nearly all members are in Japan, and 70% of Japanese are counted as members of this particular organization. This is despite less than 4% of the Japanese population is identifying as Shinto. Most identify as Buddhists, atheists, or just not religious at all. The reason for this disparity is because, according to Japanese law and custom, membership is based on whether you can be claimed by the local shrine, usually by taking part in ceremonies and celebrations at the shrine.
So it's a lot like the religions here. Every time a baby is born, there are naming ceremonies, wedding ceremonies, funerals, all sorts of, all those. If you ever go to a Shinto shrine for one of those things, you're a part of this. You have to be a part of this, counted as part of the association. By
associating with the shrine, you are counted as a member of the association.
And that is how they are able to divvy up money to the shrines, I'm assuming.
Yeah. It's one of those that, yeah.
You got to have membership for money.
The closest example, the closest comparison would be a lot of the European countries with official state religions where, like in England, for example, unless you are not Church of England, you are probably going to be counted as part of the Church of England because baby naming ceremonies and weddings and funerals and all of that take place at the Church of England. So...
You got your name on the book somewhere.
Right. In the U.S., Catholics count membership. Actually, Catholics don't count membership. Theoretically, they would count by whether or not you get your name written into the book, the baptismal book, at a Catholic church, but they don't actually count those. They just look at surveys and estimate.
That's how I got stuck being Mormon for so long. Yeah. It was a naming ceremony.
So most shrines are part of Jinja Hancho, but some are independent and others are part of other organizations. Generally, the only people who know if a shrine is part of Jinja Hancho are the clergy. Which of the more than 20,000 clergy in Jinja Hancho, most inherited the position, and only about 25% are full-time staff.
Oh, wow. Considering that most are kind of touristy now, I would, there's no full-time work there. A lot of part-timers.
Yeah.
Although I have to admit, watching the little Miko, those are the women in the white dresses with the red skirts, walking around, sweeping the hallways with little straw brooms is super cute.
But yeah, very few people identify as Shinto. Most people who do, well, just most people in Japan don't know that they're counted by the shrine as members. Almost none know that they are counted as members of a particular religious group. And even if they do, they probably don't know which. So what is Jinja Hancho? It was created on February 2, 1946, to comply with an order of the Supreme Commander for the Allied Powers, General MacArthur, who, in rebuilding Japanese society post-World War II, dictated on December 15, 1945, that Shinto had to be disestablished. It had been the official state religion of Japan for over 100 years, a history that included being a tool of imperial propaganda
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the emperor line was directly descended from Amaterasu, who is the sun goddess.
Right. And so the emperor was a god, and your best way of worshiping the gods was by worshiping the emperor and doing anything the emperor said, and expanding the power of the Japanese empire. That, of course, was something that MacArthur had for one, MacArthur being an American, would have definitely had a very negative concept of official religion. I don't know that a modern American general would necessarily have as much of an issue, considering how much evangelicals have taken over the military.
And how many other countries successfully have state churches?
But at that time, it was very much...
It leaves a bad taste in Americans' mouths.
The concept was incredibly anti-American.
Not like this ice cream.
And so he issued the Shinto directive, and this was, they removed the...
Sorry, I got distracted by the label. Interesting fact, Ben & Jerry's includes calories per serving and per container.
That's required now.
Side by side. So calories. So I'm eating American Dream, which is, what is this, a pint? This is a pint. 1,140 calories, 82% of your total fat, 210% of saturated fat of your daily value. Cholesterol is 93%. Carbs are 45%. And included added sugars, 164% of your daily value is in this. And I will probably eat the whole thing because I have no ability to turn that off. Wow. But dang. All right. I'm done scaring myself. Now I'm just going to go and eat it.
All right. So MacArthur, he removed the political power of the emperor without removing the emperor, which was probably a really smart decision to make sure that the government that he did build had legitimacy in the eyes of the Japanese citizenry.
Oh, absolutely.
Something the Allies should have done in Afghanistan, but didn't. So, yeah, they kept the emperor, but took away the religion, which made it so that the direct connection between the emperor as the head of the religion and descendant of the god
Amaterasu, the goddess of the sun.
Which I think he did have to, as part of the conditions of keeping the throne, had to
publicly acknowledge that he was not a descendant. Yeah, that was the big. Because nobody was going to believe it unless he went live on TV, which I don't think he had ever been on, to say, yeah, this is false.
Yeah. So, in response to that directive, 3 organizations, which I am not even going to bother trying to pronounce.
The Koten Kyokujo Association, the Dainippon Jinkai, and the Jinju Hosaikai.
Okay.
Yeah, who took 4 years of Japanese? This girl did.
So they got together.
And only flunked 2.
They got together and established the non-governmental organization, assuming the functions of the Jinji-en, which was a branch of the home ministry in the government. So all handling of the shrines and religious functions were moved from the government to a private organization.
That makes sense. But considering that they didn't want there to be a state religion, yeah.
This association is just one of those. It's the biggest. Not all shrines joined. Some formed other networks. This is just the largest network of shrines.
Well, it must be huge if it made it 4th in the list of...
Oh, yeah.
So if there's even more that weren't counted under this association, Shintoism, in an ambiguous way, is huge.
There are 100...
Most of the Japanese population would be considered...
There's 120 million Japanese people in Japan, and they would claim all 120 million. Much like the count of Catholics, which is the largest religion, counts entire countries.
Right,
and
it's just easier.
Eastern Orthodoxy counts entire countries. Yeah. Most of these aren't real numbers. This one's at least a smaller not real number. than it could be. So the association has 5 main activities, which are the publication and dissemination of information on shrine Shinto, performing rituals, educating adherents of Shinto, reverence of the Izzy Grand Shrine and distribution of its amulets called the Jinju Tamiya.
Izzy? How's that spelled?
I-S-E?
Issei.
Issei, okay.
I was going to say Izzy. Issei.
And preparation and training of individuals for the priesthood. That is about as minimal as you can get in and still being able to try
I
and
can't
call it a
imagine them
religious
being able to
organization.
get anybody to go into study.
It's inherited.
Oh.
It's almost entirely inherited. You don't necessarily choose to be a Shinto priest. Your dad was a Shinto priest, so you're a Shinto priest.
Okay.
And I would assume in Japanese society that
That just means you take over the care of the property and
yeah,
take over the management of
Right.
your local spirit guide.
The Ise, right?
It's like Boise. Don't say Boise. You say Boise. Issei.
Ise. Ise Grand Shrine is located in Ise, which is in the Mei Prefecture of Japan, and it is the Shinto shrine dedicated to the sun goddess
Amaterasu.
Amaterasu. So that is the main shrine.
I want to go there someday.
And it's down in southern Japan.
Yeah.
Not even close to Tokyo. Really.
No, that's why I want to go there. That's a whole section of Japan I've never been to.
Right, because you went to northern Japan, northern and central, but not southern.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So
Of Honshu, not the islands, but of the main body.
okay, so let's talk about Shintoism. First, we need to define it, and you really can't. There aren't good ways in the English language to define Shintoism because even the term religion doesn't really apply to it.
It's a worshiping. I mean, you worship the spirits of either local landscapes or local animals or local plants or whatever.
The concept of religion is based on Christianity, Judaism, and to a lesser extent, Islam, with a defined, identified leader and founder and history and dogma and sacred texts. And Shintoism has none of that. It's not exclusive either, because like you can't be a Christian and a Muslim. You can be Shinto and Christian, or Shinto, more commonly Shinto and Buddhist,
Yeah.
because it doesn't require being exclusive. Christianity does, which would make it very difficult to be Shinto and Christian, but theoretically there's nothing in Shintoism that would prevent that. It's Christianity that would prevent that. It is polytheistic, generally. It revolves around the kami, the gods or spirits. These are supernatural entities that inhabit everything. This is a concept that is believed to have begun in the Yayoi period of 1000 BCE to 300 CE. So pre-contact with China.
Right.
So traditional, ancient, primitive Japanese religion was all about the kami.
Which is exactly what you'd expect from a primitive human civilization. You worship the stuff around you. A lot of religions are like that.
Well, and a really good comparison here would be looking at in history, Japan was probably best be described as Iron Age, up to about 300 to 1000 CE, which the Iron Age in China never happened because they developed history and detailed written records during the Bronze Age. And like in Scandinavia, it didn't end until 1000 CE. And so Japan, being a more northerly country, more frontier, or not frontier, but remote country, kind of like Scandinavia is, it took a lot longer for technological and societal advances to happen.
And when they did, they came directly from China.
Yeah. So they didn't have written writing until contact with China. The religion was basically your standard paganism, which wasn't even a concept at the time of paganism. It was just worshiping the gods and spirits.
Yeah.
Just what people did. Like all humans did this. And so it's viewed as pantheistic. It's sometimes viewed as animistic because the kami go beyond just being gods that are worshipped. They're in everything. So everything is divine. And yeah.
Yeah. I mean, to me, that's like, well, yeah, that's it. But I guess some people would have a hard time understanding.
It makes it hard
You
to...
can, there's both a reverence for the spirituality of everything around you. And then there's also the big main gods and goddesses that you could choose to worship. And then there's the, like I said, local landscapes. If there's a waterfall or a river or a mountain, those are all individual gods, goddesses, whatever, spirits. You'd build shrines to all of them, and nothing breaks anything else. You can believe in all that stuff and worship all that you want. There was usually a family shrine.
Like, you can worship your
ancestors were.
You can worship
also,
your ancestors and the mountain that you live at the base of, and the emperor and the sun and the wind and your cows, and it's all fine.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why Western people have a hard time defining it is very outdated concepts of religion being on a progression from animism to polytheism to monotheism, and theoretically then onto atheism, where you can make the jump at any point, and there's no reason that those have to be exclusive.
Right.
Christianity isn't even purely monotheistic.
No, it's not.
Traditional Christianity, mainstream Christianity, has 3 gods. So it's kind of monotheistic, it's kind of polytheistic. And if you look at Catholic and Eastern Orthodox, with the saints, you've got a bunch of demigods too. There's like a full-on pantheon, which looks a whole lot more like polytheism than, say, Jewish or Islamic monotheism.
How long have we been going? Must have been like 15 minutes.
26 minutes.
26 minutes. Oh, half hour. Okay. Yeah. Well, there goes my pint.
Okay.
There goes my day's worth of calories. So good.
So then in the Kofun period, which lasted from 300 to 538 CE, contact with China happened and Buddhism started to be imported into Japan. Japanese society, just like China had done before it, with combining traditional Chinese religions and Confucianism and Taoism and bringing in Buddhism, they took Buddhism over to Japan. They also exported parts of Confucianism and Taoism and other traditional elements, and it all got blended in, just like how in Western pagan religions, there wasn't any problem for the Greeks and Romans to blend their religions into one.
Yeah.
And the Egyptians didn't have any trouble blending in with the Greeks. If you want to hear more about that, check out Schisms.
Yeah.
I did a whole episode on it. And the religion was always more on purity than really anything else. There's a
lot of cleansing.
Yeah. A lot of washing.
There's a lot of washing.
And a lot of the ceremonies are around ceremonial cleansing. And, if there's gods...
Like the first thing you do whenever you enter somebody's garden is wash your hands. And one of the first things you do when you enter a temple is you light some incense and waft the smoke over yourself, because that is also cleansing. It's in everything.
And you take off your shoes so you don't bring the dirt of outside in.
Yeah.
And that makes sense that you'd have a cleansing-based religious practice if your gods are everywhere. You are always in the presence of the gods, so you'd want to be clean and not disgusting to them.
Yeah. But it would also be an insult to enter a temple without cleaning yourself first.
Yeah.
That's pretty standard.
But what's interesting, though, with it is that most pagan religions, and there are people who identify Shintoism more as being pagan than fitting into one of the more defined religions.
It's a good label.
It kind of fits with... There's even Shintos that are calling it a nature religion.
Yeah.
Which it fits all of the labels just fine.
Yeah.
Which makes it difficult because it fits literally everything.
It's just why I love it.
And so where it really differs from most paganism is most ancient pagan religions were centered on sacrifice And Shintoism seems to be a lot more centered on cleansing than sacrifice.
Yeah. I can't think of any sacrifices except money.
Yeah.
You give money to keep the shrine going, but that's pretty much it. There's a lot of Shinto priests who were beggars. You get your good karma by throwing a priest a couple coins.
Well, and some of that would have come from Buddhism, because Buddhists don't do sacrifices.
No, that would be terrible.
You get the karma not by killing a living thing to please the gods. You please the gods by giving the priests and monks rice.
Yeah.
With the contact with Buddhism, the kami became anthropomorphized largely. There's enough that some of that wouldn't have really been possible. And they started to get put within Buddhist cosmology.
Yeah, okay. That's cool. You mean like the zodiac and stuff, or?
Maybe.
Okay.
But they just kind of got blended in with the Buddhist pantheon.
Okay.
Kind of like with Hellenization, they would blend local gods with the Greek pantheon.
Right, not taken over, but blended.
Blending in, yeah. Merging everything together. And it was in the Meiji era,
that's a fun era,
1868 to 1912, that Japan's leadership expelled all Buddhist influences, along with expelling all foreigners.
Yep. That was, like I said, that was really fun. They got to rediscover what they thought was truly Japanese.
And that's when they officially established state Shintoism. It became not just a thing that happened, it became a thing that the state controlled. And in that era, basically everything went from being stuff that just happened to everything being under state control.
Yeah.
Building up a machine that eventually conquered a huge chunk of Asia.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't like to talk about that.
No. And just like how the agricultural and industrial elements of Japan were part of the machinery of the Japanese Empire, Shintoism was part of the machinery of the empire. In a lot of, I think a good comparison here would be Russian Orthodoxy during the Russian Empire, where the state and the church were not distinct at all. They were incredibly aligned and
supported each other,
and the religion was part of maintaining state propaganda and helping support the state power, and in response the state helped keep people active in the religion.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it was really good for priests.
It was really good for emperor.
And it was really good for the emperor, yeah. But I think that's probably enough about but in modern day Shintoism, most of it's practice. It's cleansing and rituals and going to shrines, taking part in ceremonies for the harvest, for births, for deaths, for marriages,
for being bored on an afternoon and going to the local shrine for a fortune.
Yeah,
you always do. It's highly repetitive, which is probably why it's so popular. You always have to do the same motions. You always have to clap twice to wake up the gods and bow, and you go get your fortune and give some money. You get some sticks that have fortunes on them. I mean, this stuff is old.
Yeah,
and it's been going on for a long time. And it's just secondhand nature. You're raised with it,
and
whether you believe in it or not, it's
right.
respectful to go through the motions.
The majority of Japanese people, whether they identify as it or not, are atheists, and yet they go through rituals to wake up and interact with gods.
I mean, one of their main festivals is Obon, and that's the celebration of your ancestors. That's not exactly atheistic. that's still pretty religious to do that, but they set up shrines, altars. I've even got a little kamidana. It's a little house that your house god can live in. It's tiny, but it's cute.
And yeah, it's one of those things where what it has become is just a part of society and culture. And just like how Shintoism isn't exclusive, like you can be Shinto and Buddhist, There's no issue with that. You can be atheist in Shinto. There isn't an issue with that either.
Yeah.
Which is weird from an American standpoint, where you are all something and nothing else.
Yeah. Or if anybody's outside of your group, they're bad.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just whatever.
And if any of our Japanese listeners want to correct anything I said that's wrong, please do.
Yay. Yes. I've been twice. I am no expert. I'm still just a white girl from Idaho.
Now, I'm also going to guess that most of our Japanese listeners are probably actually Americans living in Japan.
That's
because there are
pretty good.
A lot of those, yeah. All right, so
if they haven't all been driven out, getting there.
Okay, we still have 2 viewers. This is awesome.
Yay!
And in Discord,
they probably brought up the YouTube stream and then wandered off.
And we still have 1 person in Discord.
Sweet.
So, I want to talk about the Democratic debates.
Okay. If we primary. Have to.
Yes. This is something that is it's big, it's important, and as of time of recording, we're a few days before Super Tuesday. By the time the episode's actually released on the main feed, we are post Super Tuesday. Bloomberg.
So we're maybe talking about candidates who aren't around anymore.
I don't really want to talk about specific candidates except for Bloomberg.
Because of that?
Yeah, because of that.
Bloomberg. He's putting so much money into Idaho right now. It's ridiculous. You can't go anywhere without seeing his name.
Right. Yeah. He's got... Okay, we within 5 minutes, we both got text messages from the Bloomberg campaign.
Can we count on you for your vote? It's like, no, take me off your list.
You got a phone call too, right?
I did.
I screen all my calls, so they didn't leave a message. I'm sure they tried calling me. We've gotten at least 3 things in the mail, including 2 in the same day.
Yeah. Yeah, that was TV commercials, radio commercials, billboards. They are opening an office here in Boise, which have garnered some protests.
Yep.
Mostly from pro-gun people.
Oh.
I don't think Bloomberg's particularly anti-gun.
He was in New York City. He is... And what's interesting
that's enough. That's enough to right there to piss off the Second Amendment people.
What's interesting is in the debates, he is... Well,
the debates, he's only been in 1. Yeah.
2. He's been in 2.
Oh, okay.
But he was saying that he, with a lot of the things, when they try to pin him on stuff he did in New York, he would say that, well, what works in New York doesn't necessarily work everywhere.
And everybody else is writing notes for the next time they run. It's like, oh, hey, that's a good excuse.
So your excuse for everything you did is that you don't actually believe that that was necessarily the right thing to do?
Yeah, stop and frisk was a good idea in New York.
He finally apologized for that.
Oh, God.
But what was most interesting was in the South Carolina debate, they kept talking about, and other candidates were acknowledging that he helped flip the House by flipping 41 Republican seats to Democrats. And when he finally got around to really bragging about that, he had a Freudian slip where he got halfway through the word bot in talking about helping fund these campaigns.
Yeah.
Michael Bloomberg believes that he bought the House of Representatives, and he believes that he can buy the White House.
And they owe him.
Yeah.
They don't.
Because he bought those seats for them. That's
dangerous, man. That is dangerous and evil, and not evil, but it's misguided. Definitely. You can't, that's not how you make democracy better.
Right. Democracy is
But this isn't about democracy for people like him.
No.
Money is the true religion, not God's, not any kind of
not the American dream.
The American dream. Trust in governmental superiority or anything. It's just terrible.
Bloomberg, and there's been a lot of talk about billionaires and donors and PACs and super PACs and
money, corruption, kind of a big theme.
People with money complaining about people who don't have money, trying to get money from people who do have money.
Yeah.
Elizabeth Warren really needs to back off of Pete Buttigieg and the wine cave and trying to get money from billionaires. he doesn't have a whole lot of money. He's not funding this campaign himself. He needs every donor he can get.
Yeah.
Granted, it is good that Elizabeth Warren is railing on corrupt campaign finance practices.
Yeah.
So that is important.
And the only person she can't really touch on that is Sanders, and she's attacked him for it too.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, well, I know you guys are on the defensive here. Time to stop bickering. Actually, no, time to start bickering. That's a hard one.
Okay, so Eric in Discord just sent a crying smiley face.
Yeah.
Then there's the single payer versus public option debate, where the two more left-wing candidates are calling for single payer healthcare,
Just do it.
while the rest just want to do a public option.
Boo. Just do it. Just pull the Band-Aid off.
Lauren, what's your thought on it?
After working behind the red tape for medical, I just do single payer. For the love of God, there's so much money wasted, lives lost because...
And you worked in billing.
And Yeah, I worked in billing. I got calls from people who got collection notices, who owe thousands upon thousands of dollars. And it's sad, it's heartbreaking, and it's like you choose to either pay extortion money to the hospital and doctors to live, or you choose not to, go to collections, get your credit ruined, and die.
Yeah. Well, heck, for a fun one, your septoplasty, fixing a severely deviated septum.
Look at my pretty straight nose. I got a nose job.
We have some of the best insurance out there. I work for the hospital. The insurance is basically self-insured through the hospital. We got the care through the hospital that I work at to help keep the costs as low as possible. And was it 5 hours in the hospital?
Yeah.
We think the total cost is going to be $1,300.
No. We know it's going to be more than that because that doesn't consider anesthesiology.
We still haven't gotten the bill from the anesthesiologist.
Man. Yeah. Yeah, and don't tell people to pay their huge bill right before they go into the surgery. Oh my God, what a dick move.
Well, and then there's even the whole issue
by the way, this is going to cost $1,000. Would you like to pay that now? It's like, no.
We carefully try to do everything right by getting all of your care within the health system and the surgery at the hospital with a provider who is a part of the Health Alliance. And we're hoping that the anesthesiologist that was on duty that day is in network.
Fingers crossed.
Because there's no guarantee.
Yeah, they could have been contracted out.
Heck, even the emergency rooms.
Yeah.
Yeah, in our particular hospital, the emergency room, the main group is all in network. They sometimes subcontract, and those subcontracted doctors aren't.
And that's dick move. If you go to the ER for the hospital that you work for, and then you end up getting charged out of network because the guy was covering for somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, that's under the hospital's responsibility, not yours.
So all of that.
We have a lot of beef.
This whole debate, and you worked in medical billing. I work in healthcare IT.
You work closely with
billing.
With billing and with the blood laboratory. There we go.
Yeah. Which a lot of money goes there too. And the amount of complexity in pricing. Like I work with the laboratory outreach program.
I've decided that pricing is a magic 8-ball with infinite sides, and it is shaken every time somebody gets something done.
Well, okay, so for a good example.
Not for each person, because it will be different next time you go in.
You have a single surgery. There is the insurance that the patient has. Then there is what the hospital's rates are. There's the doctor and the doctor's rates and insurance contracts, and the anesthesiologist and the anesthesiologist rates and contracts. And if there's any pathology or lab work that happens, and there's those contracts and rates and everything. There are reasonably 1 million possible combinations on a single surgery as to what the cost could be.
Yeah, for me, it could be $1,300, and for somebody else, could be $16,000. I mean, we don't know.
Yeah.
And we're paying so much money for this insurance.
Oh, and okay, so the cost of this insurance, it's self-insured through my employer, basically. They do pay an insurance company to help administer it, but it is largely self-insured. We pay out of my check is a total of 7% of my income before taxes. No, 15%.
I was going to say
15% of my income.
Okay.
My employer is paying 50% as much as I make. Literally half, well, I guess literally a third of my employment package is going to pay insurance, not into my pocket, and then they're still taking more money out of that.
Yeah.
And people who are saying that it's too expensive to do single payer, how can it fucking possibly be too expensive when a common scenario for good, cheap insurance is that the total cost of the package is 50% of your income?
Yeah.
Actually, 65% of your income?
These are all people who all have all of their health care covered by the government.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't know. I really don't think that they get it.
Yeah.
And people who are rich enough that it's a drop in the bucket. They don't even, whatever. Even if they do have to pay cash for something, it doesn't matter to them. But yeah, for everybody under a certain percentage, certain poverty level, say, man, we would be able to give so much more to the economy if we had that money in our pocket.
Right. And like Klobuchar keeps talking about...
It certainly can't be any more.
Klobuchar keeps talking about single payer kicking people off of their insurance.
That's not how that works.
If I change jobs, I get, quote, kicked off of my insurance.
Yeah.
I didn't choose my insurance. It happened when my employer, half of my employer got bought by somebody else. So the other half of my employer bought out the other half. That's how my insurance got picked.
Yeah, it's not like you had a list.
It was secret backroom deals. I had no say in it. It was...
And if you get kicked off of your current insurance just to get a better insurance...
Uh-huh.
No problem.
Oh, and heck, I've had employers that while I continued to work for the same employer, with my last job, they bought a competitor and then moved everybody over onto the company they bought's insurance. So I got kicked off of my insurance to get moved onto a different plan. And then when they fired me, I got kicked off of my insurance again.
And I think part of the reason why they're using these terms is because this is what the average person is complaining about. This is what the average person is afraid will happen. So they have to address that in their terms.
Which it would be
Makes
better.
them look like idiots, for one.
Right, because a much better approach in my mind would be educate the average idiot on what they actually have.
Oh my gosh, nobody knows what they have.
Nobody chooses their insurance. And nobody in their fucking right mind likes their insurance. Like I've said, we have really good insurance.
It's still awful.
We have to fight them all the time.
Yeah.
They make so many mistakes. And if we aren't watching closely...
Hey, it's just like a contractor. You just hover over their shoulder. Did you get the right ICD-10 code for that?
Oh, man. God damn it.
Medical coder joke there. Anyway.
But a public option would actually be the next logical step after the Affordable Care Act.
Right. It's almost like that's what it was gearing us up for.
That was supposed to be the next step.
Yeah.
And that didn't happen. Granted, Medicare for All was supposed to happen 5 years after Medicare for retirees. And that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was all supposed to happen back in the 50s or 60s.
Healthy people are selfish.
Even though it would cost less money.
And even though something terrible might happen to them at any moment.
Now, I think what it really speaks to is single payer healthcare would cost more money for wealthy people who don't actually work. Day traders, the independently
work,
wealthy.
Though? I mean, don't they have to actually sit at a computer and do stuff?
I mean, people who aren't a part of a company that provides health insurance.
Okay.
Those people would have who have ridiculous amounts of money and don't work for somebody would have huge amounts of taxes to pay for insurance for poorer people.
Oh no. Not
And
the poor people.
the CEO at my company would end up paying a lot more for healthcare than I would. She makes a whole lot more money than I do. I wouldn't have any problem with her paying more for insurance than me.
Nope, because you don't need that much that much wealth. You just don't.
Yeah. But when it all comes down to it, the most important thing is saving the republic. And what really matters is that we need to pick somebody who can defeat Trump in Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Florida, North Carolina, or Arizona.
Okay.
Basically, any two of those states. Whoever can beat Trump in any two of those states is who we need to save the republic.
Okay.
Just not Michael Bloomberg.
Yeah, no. Sorry. Gonna nix that right in the bud. He'll be out. Or he'll continue to pour money into it until he doesn't have a choice.
His plan is to run until he drops out and then fund whoever wins, which means he's going to run as long as he can. Like, contest it all the way to the convention. Yeah.
Yeah, and it seems like after covering this for so long, you just say, oh, God, just get it over with already. We haven't even scratched the surface of people who voted. So I just need to put the brakes on there and just wait till we actually get more votes in. People have their opinions. People attack others with opinions.
Yeah. All right.
And then hopefully that will stop.
Let's go ahead and move on to some news. Saudi Arabia has ordered the arrest of Mecca Girl. This is a woman who had a band that did some rapping about living in Mecca.
Okay.
And this got posted onto YouTube, and
was it derogatory? Was it just rapping?
She was
street life kind of stuff?
Wearing a headscarf, singing in a coffee shop with backup dancers and children around her. And the authorities got her YouTube account shut down and have issued arrest warrants for her and everybody in the band.
Holy crap.
Saying that, quote, offends the customs and traditions of the people of Mecca and contradicts the identity and traditions of its esteemed population.
She hurt somebody's feelings, so she gets arrested?
She hurt a prince's feelings.
Uh-huh.
The governor of Mecca is a prince.
Yeah. Dude, girls, get out of there. Try.
God damn. Yeah.
It's so messed up.
And they keep trying to make progress towards giving women some rights.
But it's only just to look good. They don't actually give them any rights.
Well,
they make it so restrictive they can't actually enjoy them.
No, Lauren, shut up. You're a woman.
I know.
The problem here is that these entitled women want all of the rights.
All of the rights.
Not just the crumbs that they're throwing their way.
All of the rights.
What the fuck? I mean, seriously.
They're so selfish.
God damn. Utah has a bill working through. It has now passed the state Senate that would decriminalize polygamy.
Okay.
This has been illegal since Utah got statehood.
It was, yeah.
And it's been a felony since the 1930s, since no Mormons who could afford to be polygamous stopped being polygamists up to that point. And so they made it a felony. And in the hearings, they've had women from polygamous families come in and talk to them about
what it actually means to be in a polygamous family.
Yeah.
And not just immediately have anti-Mormon propaganda shoved down your throat. I mean, I think they're all batshit crazy, but I do understand that the Mormons have a particular history with the U.S. government that has not been friendly towards them.
Right.
And that particular law is one of the worst ones because nobody cared if you had 2-3 wives, as long as everybody was provided for. Now, it wasn't a pretty picture for most of these families. Right. But that was beside the point. That's not what the government needed to worry about. Nowadays, polygamy, if you can figure out the legal property issues, I say go for it. I don't care.
So what they're doing is taking it from a felony punishable by 5 years in prison to an infraction. You get a fine.
Okay.
Kind of like a traffic ticket.
Another wife, another fine.
I am going to guess that the felony thing was also, whenever you look at felonies for nonviolent offenses, it's to make it so people can't vote.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big reason for that. That's why there's quite the fight in Florida going on right now over a ballot initiative that passed overwhelmingly to make it so that felons can vote when they get out of prison.
Yes.
They've done their time.
Yes.
Let them vote.
Yes.
And so this would make it this is an interesting one because it will only apply to consenting adults.
Right, because non-consenting is a whole different issue.
If you're not consenting or if somebody isn't an adult, that's a different problem.
That's also a different problem.
And they are increasing the penalties on those.
Yes.
So if everybody's consenting, if everybody's an adult, you get a fine. What I wonder about how this would be enforced would be, how do you get the fine?
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you just get caught with walking down the street holding both of your wife's hands and then get a fine for that? Or what? I am really curious about how this would be enforced.
I can only imagine it coming up in like child custody issues, and then it's come out that that there's a polygamy, and then they get fined, or abuse.
Oh, if there is abuse, then it goes back to being felony.
Yeah. Okay. So they got that covered. You're right. I mean, it's a threat with no stick. There's no way that they can enforce that, but they're saying that
they haven't really been enforcing it.
They haven't enforced it anyway. All that they've done is used it to try and shut down those crazy camps, and those people deserve to get shut down because there's non-consenting children who are being abused.
And one of the things
that's the three big ones.
And one of the things that does happen is when you ban something with a blanket ban, it has a tendency to become more abusive. You ban prostitution and you get more sex trafficking because there is no legal recourse for anybody involved in that trade because,
it's the ultimate
illegal.
Deregulation.
You look at...
Everything goes under the table at that point, and then nobody's protected.
And then with polygamy, that happened as well where, okay, granted, I'm not going to say that it was necessarily done right in the 19th century and early 20th century, but conceivably at the point that it's illegal to do, it's already a felony. You're already looking at least 5 years in prison. Who cares if she's over 18?
Yeah.
It's still a felony. You're still going to prison. And as long as you can marry the prosecutor, then you're good to go. Because like in far southern Utah, where the FLDS were, the prosecutor for that county was actually in a polygamous relationship.
Nice.
So, yeah.
It's just adding another limb to the blended family kind of thing. Really blended.
So the goal of the sponsor, what he has said is, quote, in these isolated insular communities, that's where a lot of these problems can really escalate. And that's where the bad people can really and have weaponized the law in order to keep their victims silent and isolated in their control. Yeah,
that's a really good point. I mean, if you're a woman in a polygamous marriage and he is beating the shit out of you, you can't go to anybody.
Because you'd go to prison for 5 years as well.
Yep.
Yeah, he'd go to prison for 15, but you'd go to prison for 5.
And you probably have kids. So that sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a very good point. I mean, good on Utah. It's weird.
Yeah.
It's weird to say that.
Mad Mike Hughes is somebody I think we've talked about before. He's the flat earther who keeps on trying to do these rocket attempts to get up into space to prove that the Earth is flat.
He's just doing it for money now.
No, he's done. His last attempt, he got in the rocket. The steam powered rocket took off. It got a couple thousand feet up, and then it started coming down.
Oh.
And there was a parachute with nobody in the parachute, and then it crashed
Oh,
with him inside.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And of course, somebody like that would have tons of videos set up.
Oh, yeah. And the whole reason why he was saying he needed to be on the rocket is so that he can make sure that the camera is working correctly and he can do all the adjustments to make sure that he's correctly proving that the Earth is flat.
He didn't even need to be on the rocket.
But if you ever talk to anything with the flat earthers or listen to anything about it, the basic premise is that, the round Earth is it's just camera trickery. And you have to have the right cameras and be directly in control of them and check all the settings to make sure that it's actually taking the proper picture correctly.
That's not how cameras work.
The rest is all just trickery, and it's all
It's not like you're taking a picture of the Earth through a lens ball and everything's spherical. No, that's not what they did. Or they just happened to always be taking pictures of the Earth from above.
So we've talked a little bit about the ongoing controversy in Adventism about the women's ordination.
Mm-hmm.
And the decision to not allow women's ordination, even though the West Coast had already started doing that.
Yeah.
West Coast of the U.S. specifically. Well, Spectrum Magazine is an independent Adventist publication.
I thought you were going to say tabloid.
that tends to be on the more liberal wing of Adventism. It's based out of Southern California, where you find most liberal Adventists at. And they tend to be pro-women's ordination and pro-gay rights and accepting of gay people and about as decent as you can get while still being part of a batshit crazy apocalyptic death cult. Granted, all Christianity is an apocalyptic death cult.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that's clear. But yeah, they are not going to be allowed to have a booth at General Conference 2020. General Conference is something that happens every 5 years where the entire world church sends delegates to a meeting to decide on the big stuff. And they've always had a booth at General Conference, and they got turned down this time because they're not conservative enough for the leadership.
Right. What's changed in 5 years?
Ted Wilson, the current GC president, he was raised in the mission field. And as a general rule of thumb, the children of missionary pastors who become pastors tend to be really, really, really super conservative because the rest of the world tends to be more conservative. Same issue that the Methodist Church is having, where basically the majority of the American church is splitting from what's basically the African church, because the rest of the world in Methodism is more conservative than American Methodism. And in Adventism, it's similar, where the rest of the world is a lot more conservative because they were created by 1950s missionaries from America. So they're basically practicing 1950s American Christianity in the rest of the world.
Yeah. I always think it's funny when in the U.S. we fight for, human rights. And it's like, how can you even define that when so much of the world doesn't even consider this stuff to be right?
Yeah.
But whatever.
Yeah. PragerU is a YouTube channel that does a bunch of ads for a particular conservative Christian anti-public education message.
Okay.
And they sued YouTube, claiming that
discrimination.
They were censored on their educational videos and that YouTube discriminated against its right for freedom of speech. They claimed that YouTube in 2017 reduced its viewership and revenue with, quote, arbitrary and capricious use of restricted mode and demonetization viewer restriction filters. This went to court. It was dismissed by the U.S. District Court, and a 3-judge panel at the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals has also unanimously upheld that dismissal on the grounds that YouTube is not under the First Amendment because it's a private forum.
Yeah.
The First Amendment applies to the government.
Yeah. It's amazing how often we have to say that.
On the other hand, and Prager tried to make this argument, YouTube presents itself as kind of being like a public forum and has enough of a market share that maybe it needs to be under that kind of regulation, which creates an interesting paradox where far right-wing anti-government people are wanting more government regulation of private corporations. Like, he wants to get rid of all of public education, but he wants YouTube to be under...
But don't touch his YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Screw you. Rather than Prager you. Screw you.
Do you want to talk about Daybill, the mom from Rexburg?
Phew. Oh, that's a mess we've been watching pretty closely here in Idaho. Obviously, this lady's from Rexburg. Well, Utah?
Rexburg. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's all over the country now. Mm-hmm. Several states have been dragged into this, unfortunately. Lady is part of a super crazy end of the world apocalyptic death cult, I guess. I can't remember what they called it. But anyway, her religious views...
Preparing the people.
A people. A people. Ha! That's not racist or anything.
Preparing a people to try to get together the 144,000 that are going to be going to heaven at Christ's second coming in July 2020.
Oh, okay. So that explains why they've gone crazy recently.
Yeah.
Apparently, she got a little bit crazier in her beliefs. Started to really think that this is going to happen. Her husband was then killed by her brother. This is her first husband.
While they were getting a divorce.
Yeah, they're getting a divorce because she's gone loco, and he gets killed by her brother. Okay, so she moves back to Rexburg because this was in Arizona. Moves back to Rexburg, gets married to another guy.
Who is the author of books for this cult, novels about the end of the world in
and runs
July
the
2020.
main web forum for this particular. So, okay.
Yeah.
She's hooking up with the leader, gets married to him. He's getting married to her only a few weeks after his first wife dies. Suspiciously. They've now confirmed that it was suspicious. Her brother, who killed her first husband, also dies suspiciously. And what's gotten them into the news is that she's got 2 kids.
Mm-hmm.
Who are, 11...
7 and 17.
7 and 17 from previous marriage that nobody has seen since last September.
Yeah.
So they said, oh, they're going to school in Arizona. They contacted the schools in Arizona. No sign of them. They say that they're being homeschooled by a friend of hers from Arizona. They haven't been able to find anybody. All of the kids' earthly possessions were found in a storage shed in Rexburg, which is weird that they didn't take any of their stuff with them to Arizona. That's weird. She and her new husband, they disappear. They go to Hawaii.
Oh, wait. That was after the police talked to them about the kids.
Oh, yeah. The police
interview them.
Please show us where your kids are.
And then they immediately book a ticket to Hawaii.
To live there. I mean, they were not planning on coming back.
Well, they were going to stay there until July 2020 when Jesus takes them as part of the 144,000.
Yeah, I don't think her kids made the cut, unfortunately.
Apparently not.
So everybody's hoping that they're going to be found by some crazy homeschooler, right-wing nut in Arizona, but it's looking less and less like these kids are even alive.
The judge ordered her back in November or December to produce the children.
He said you have to produce the children by January?
Yeah,
5th?
gave a deadline in January.
Which is weird. That it's like, why are you giving her time to produce the kids?
She was in Hawaii. So give her time to get in touch with the children and get everybody tickets to fly.
No, then you just tell whoever's in charge of those kids, take them down to the local police station now. No, This was weird. This whole thing is just weird. So they give her time. She doesn't produce the kids. So she is now, what is that? Obstruction?
She's been arrested for child endangerment.
But they can't prove it because they can't find the kids, so they can't prove that they're endangered. And I think that's if they found bodies, she's done. It's done. If they find the children alive, she's still done. Yeah. But in a different way. She's finally admitted that she's not going to fight extradition, that she is going to come back to Idaho for these charges.
Her husband's already flown back to Idaho.
He's already flown back. The first thing he did, which is weird, first thing he did when he got back to Idaho was go onto his web forum and say, "Don't worry, we'll be back."
Yeah.
Before he contacted police, before he contacted news, family. Oh my God, this woman's mother is looking for her grandkids like crazy. It's previous coworkers, family members are all saying how batshit crazy they are. They don't know where the kids are. They're fearing the worst. And it's just this multi-state crazy fiasco, all because they honestly believe July's the end of the world.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
and I honestly think she's stalling for that reason.
Well, it's going to
be hilarious in August.
When it came time for her hearing, everybody expected her to try to get the bail reduced from $5 million to $10,000, which she did. She tried to get the bail reduced. That was denied.
To $5 million. Yeah, that's she's a bit of a flight risk.
Yeah. And when you're already in Hawaii, getting out of the country, like into countries that
when
don't
you've already
extradite,
ran from one state to another state that's literally on the edge of your country, yeah, you're a flight risk. So no bail for you.
Like, heck, it's often reasonable just to go a state away. But like Hawaii has arrested her on the Idaho warrant. She is not fighting extradition, so they will get her on a plane with multiple law enforcement officers escorting her all the way to Rexburg.
And I don't know how she's living through this, because there's been several people who spotted her in Hawaii and harassed her about where the kids are. So it's not like she's living there in peace.
Yeah.
She's being hounded by everybody. Everybody wants to know where these kids are. And of course, they describe her as being, stone cold, and, she looks so smug and she knows where the kids are. And it's like, okay, we don't know anything about that. So don't be jumping to conclusions just because you saw her in an airport. But I don't know how maybe that's why she agreed to extradition. Maybe she's sick of it.
Yeah, that could be.
Now, if she, flew the coop to Thailand or something and didn't have to deal with that, maybe she would. But she couldn't make it.
Yeah.
But, it'll be interesting to see this unravel.
Yeah.
Because, everybody's assuming the kids are gone, buried in the desert somewhere. And they didn't make the cut, which is awful.
We have feedback.
Like from this particular live stream or from before?
From the live stream, we've got the crying, smiling face.
That's awesome. That describes like my past week, 2 weeks. Yep.
From not the live stream, because looking at YouTube again, we still don't have anything on YouTube. Regarding episode 343 from Colleen at CRoseJ on Twitter. Episode 343, the nerds were arguing. It was great.
Oh, God. Remind me.
So that was me and Roger Nygaard at the end.
Oh, God.
Arguing about ancient humans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I was half passed out by that time.
You weren't on the interview. You were sitting on the other end of the couch listening in.
It's funny getting just a half conversation of two nerds arguing. I have to admit, that is pretty hilarious. The same with the interview that you did.
Yeah.
Hearing just half of the story is just like, this is awesome.
And it's one of those where I don't usually argue with in an interview. That's not my interview style. I just couldn't stop myself. It was, yeah. And then from Steve Chappett at SteveC50 on Twitter, also regarding episode 343, wonderful podcast about atheist thinking. So thank you, Steve.
Oh, that's good.
Regarding 342, which one was 340?
Was that the interview?
That was a different interview.
One of the no, that wasn't What's Her Face. That was after.
Phil Ferguson.
Oh, Phil Ferguson, the Phil Ferguson Show.
Yes, Phil Ferguson of the Phil Ferguson Show. Josh via the website asked, which Breaking the Cycle video was Phil talking about? There's a ton on YouTube.
Ooh.
And some FNAF and FMA videos. And I can't figure out which one it was. Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe we could ask Phil to send us a link.
Yeah, I don't know what FNAF or FMA is. So I'm lost.
Family medical leave? No, that's FML.
FMLA.
Fuck my life.
Yeah.
Asshole.
From Rich via the website. Hi, Dustin and Lauren. I heard a story about an American talking with a wealthy German about taxes. When the German said he paid a marginal rate of something like 50%, the American asked if that high rate bothered him. The German said no, because he did not want to be a rich man living in a poor country. You're probably aware of our homegrown in Washington State anti-tax mutant Tim Ehrman, who ironically costs working class taxpayers money with his harebrained initiatives. When the legislature and courts have to deal with, then throw them out. A right-wing myth is that there is nothing worse than paying taxes. Yeah, it's. I think I've heard of Sam or Tim. Maybe I'm not sure. But yeah, the whole right-wing myth of taxes are evil is why just between where we are and Portland, there's like 20 dams that are on the verge of collapsing.
Taxes equal government, and there are people who are inherently going to hate everything about the government.
Yeah.
Whether it's roads or dams or power, it doesn't matter. If it's run by the government, F you, I can do it better on my own if you would just leave me alone with my money. Never mind the fact that you wouldn't have jobs.
Right.
Or food. But whatever, you ignore that. Blinders are on, and you just say, no, if I was able to keep more of my cash, more of my money, I would be much better off. And that's just not true.
And it's a new concept.
Yeah, think of any civilization, even American, that's survived on a no taxation policy.
This concept was an invention of 1970s neoconservatism that took over the right wing, and it's just weird.
Regulated taxes, or maybe low taxes with certain rules attached, I can kind of see people at least supporting that. But this no taxes thing, that's just...
And the rights used it as a ploy to always have something to campaign on. They campaign on lowering the deficit and then get into office and lower taxes, which increases the deficit. But when they lower taxes, they make the claim that it will lower the deficit because it will boost economic growth.
Which is a myth, a lie, and...
Which doesn't happen.
Has never happened.
Yeah. All it does is increase the deficit so they can go back to campaigning on reducing the deficit that they will continue to make worse. I don't know how they're still getting away with it.
Blinders.
Regarding episode 341, which was our last episode with news, opiates, vouchers, and stampedes.
Oof.
Rich via the website, the sheepdog reference is to Prepper's belief that normal people are weak, docile, and need protecting by strong, bold individuals. Quote, or parentheses, heavily armed preppers, in parentheses, who call themselves sheepdogs. It's an indication of their delusional state.
Yeah. Yeah, I figured that out, and the
language was definitely also pretty Christian. The
of
sheep
course
and
it
the
is.
shepherd, and then add the sheepdogs in.
Of course it is. It always comes around to being, and because who honestly believes that the end of the world is coming?
Yeah,
religious crazy people.
Well, we went to some camping thing down at Expo Idaho, and
a camping convention expo thing, and it was all survivor prep.
Mormon preppers.
Yep, there's the women there to teach you how to
Mormon.
fill up your pantry, and then there was men there to teach you how to defend yourself and survive in the wild.
Yeah.
Creepy combo.
Oh, it was so weird.
Grandma's jam, machete.
And how to get these tents that you can set up in 3 hours with your 15 children to house 20 people.
Yeah. Oh, the big dome was really cool, though.
It was, but...
I want to live in a dodecahedron. Bucky could live in a Bucky ball.
And then regarding episode 65,
He went to bed.
that is not a typo. Episode 65.
Oh, somebody went back in the
from
archives.
Way back. Hello, I'm an XJW and a atheist and absolutely loved episode 65 interviewing Chase. I was wondering if there is a place where I can hear more from him, a podcast, YouTube channel, blog, etc. By the way, if you have any interest in interviewing another former Jehovah's Witness atheist, you can contact the host of Telltale Atheist. He's a really intelligent and interesting guy. Thanks, Kristen.
Yeah, when was the last time you had a Jehovah's Witness on the show? Please don't say episode 65.
I think Bria was earlier than that. So yeah, probably episode 65.
I think, yeah, maybe we should
yeah.
look into this. Was it Telltale Atheist?
Yeah.
Thanks.
But yeah.
Which it would make sense if you were ex-Jehovah's Witness, you would look for the podcast that had Jehovah's Witness stuff. So yeah, we definitely need to keep up on that diversity.
Yeah. No, Chase was also on Ask an Atheist once or twice. He is in Washington, somewhere in the Puget Sound, so he's gotten on that show a few times. And yeah. And now for supporters, we have a upgrading patron, Samuel.
Yay.
So thank you, Samuel.
Thank you, Samuel.
And the timing of that was
Sam.
awesome because we had just lost the patron a day or two before, so that helped balance it out.
Womp.
So thank you. If you want to get in touch with us, you can send us an email at contact@atheistnomads.com. You can go to the website at atheistnomads.com/contact and leave a message using the feedback form. You can also use SpeakPipe on the website, atheistnomads.com/speakpipe, or Facebook or Twitter or just about anywhere else. We love feedback. Send it our way.
Send us puppy pictures.
And if you would like to support the show... And if you want to support the show, you can find out how at atheistnomads.com/donate or patreon.com/atheistnomads. And we appreciate the support. It helps keep the show going.
It doesn't help. It does keep the show
It literally keeps the show
going.
Literally, the show would have been canceled several times before if not for patron support.
Yay.
So,
love.
Thank you. We love you. And patrons, thank you so much for joining for the live show. And everybody else... we'll be back live for 350.
Whew.
350.
It's a big year for anniversaries.
In 5 weeks. So I'll have details closer to that date.
All right. Love you.
Alrighty. Until next time, remember, not all those who wander are lost.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Atheist Nomads. You can find show notes and contact information at atheistnomads.com. Follow us on Twitter at Atheist Nomads and like us on Facebook at facebook.com/Atheist Nomads. Please subscribe to the show in iTunes, Stitcher, or your podcatcher of choice. And while you're there, feel free to leave us a review. Theme music is courtesy of Sturdy Fred. Until next time, this has been the Atheist Nomads.
Oh, and we have more feedback
In my mouth.
from
Blech.
Eric via Discord. Good podcast. It was fun seeing the live stream on YouTube.
Yay! You got to see me firsthand eat a whole pint of ice cream in a half hour. I've been not eating sweets lately, and it shows.
Yeah, and I drank... Yeah, it's only half a liter of
9.5?
9.4%.
9.4. All right.
That's not that bad.
It's a good show. It's a good show.
Alrighty, that's it for the live stream.
Aloha.
Bye.
That means hello and goodbye.